Yeah. Let's see. Let's get on here. Okay, I think I'm live. Got 3 monitors. Yeah. No, that was supposed to come here to do something different. Well, let me just give you a quick typology of this story. Orpheus and Euripides. This story, I'm not too sure how many people know this story, but they call this a Greek myth. So let me read the typologies and show you how similar this is to the Bible story. So this, so let me start from here. I hope you can see it on the screen. The story of Orpheus and Euripides is the ultimate tragic love story, perhaps one of the most famous Greek myths. It has inspired many important painters such as Peter Paul Rubens and Nicholas. Moreover, many operas and songs and plays have been composed to honor these two great lovers who tragically lost the chance to enjoy their love. The story of Orpheus and Euripides has been told in many versions, a few differences between them. The earliest account from Lycabas, circa 500 and 530 BCE, a Greek lyric poet. Hereby we present you a mixture of these various versions. Orpheus talented at playing music. Orpheus, known as the most talented male music player of ancient times, it is said that the god Apollo was his father, from whom he took his extreme talent in music, and the muse and the Cyclops was his mother. He was living in Thrace, on the northern eastern part of Greece. Orpheus had divinely gifted voice that could charm everyone who heard it when he was present. First, the lyre as a boy, he had it mastered it at no time at all. The myth said that no god or mortal could resist his music, and even the rocks and trees would move themselves to be near him. I think that was a typo at the end there. So the story goes somewhat like, however, things would soon change and grief would ensure. What was that? Yeah, things change and grief would ensure happiness. There was one man who was despising Orpheus and despised Eurydice for his own. Aristeus, a shepherd, had plotted a plan to conquer the beautiful nymph, and there he was, waiting in the bushes for the young Orpheus. Sorry, for the young couple to pass. By seeing that the lovers were approaching, he intended to jump on them and kill Orpheus. As the shepherd made his move, Orpheus grabbed Eurydice by the hand and started running pell-mell through the forest. The chase was long, and Eurydice showed no signs of giving up or slowing down. On and on they ran, and suddenly Orpheus felt Eurydice stumble and fall. Her hand slipped from his grasp, unable to comprehend what had just happened. He rushed to her side, but stood short in the dismay, for the eyes perceived the deathly pallor that suffered her cheeks. Looking around, he saw no trace of the shepherd, for Eurydice had witnessed the event and had left. Few steps away, Eurydice had stepped on the nearest of snakes and had been bitten by a deadly viper. Knowing that there was no chance of survival, Eurydice had abandoned his try, cursing his luck and Orpheus. And this is a story of I think this is a movie as well. Black Orpheus. You can kind of Google that and see the movie. After the death of his beloved wife, Orpheus was no more the same carefree person he used to be. His wife, without Eurydice, seems endless and could do nothing more than grieve for her. This is when he had a great but yet crazy idea. He decided to go to the underworld and try to get his wife back. Apollo, his father, would talk to Hades, god of the underworld, to accept him and hear his plead. You know, when Jesus was also crucified, crucified and put in the coffin, in those 3 days, he himself was also in Hades. But this is not the point here. So it goes on to say, Hades openly wept. Persona's heart melt. I think I skipped out a part of the story. I think this is when a grieving the music planted and death of Orpheus. And so he was a group of irritated women, furious for his scorn. I think I missed this out. From then on, the heartbroken musician was watching disheartened day after day, night after night, in total despair. He would find no consolation in anything. His misfortune tormented him, forcing him to abstain from contact with any other woman, and slowly but surely he found it himself, shunning their company completely. His songs were no more joyful, but extremely sad. His only comfort was to lay on a huge rock and feel the carcasses of the breeze. His own versions were the open sky. And so it was that a group of irritated women, furious for his scorn towards them, chanced upon him. Orpheus was so desperate that he did not even try to repulse their advances. The woman killed him, cut his body into pieces, and threw them and his lyre into the river. It is said that his head and his lyre floated downriver to the island of Lesbos. There the muses found them and gave Orpheus a proper burial ceremony. People believe that his grave emanated music plenty of. Okay, this is what they did to him afterwards when he came up. So I think I've got the wrong slide. So this is the one that's supposed to be read. So Hades openly wept. This is when he went to Hades, and he was Hades, what modern day we would call hell, and he wept for his wife, and he played them so much music that even the god of hell, so to speak, or the devil as we will call him today, wept. So I'll pick up the story from here. So he even passed a 3-headed dog that you see in Greek mythology called Cerberus, the gigantic 3-headed dog, and guarding the entry of the underworld, covered his many ears with his paw. Hollowed in despair, the voice of Orpheus was so moving that Hades promised to this desperate man that Eurydice would follow him to the upper world, the world of the living. However, he warned Orpheus that for no reason must he look back while his wife was still in the dark, for that would undo everything he hoped for. He should wait for Eurydice to get into the light before he looked at her. With great faith in his heart and joy in his songs, Orpheus began his journey out of the underworld, joyful that he would once again be reunited with his love. As Orpheus was reaching the exit of the underworld, he could hear the footfalls of his wife approaching him. He wanted to turn round and hug her immediately, but managed to control his feelings. As he was approaching the exit, his heart was beating faster and faster. The moment he stepped onto the world of the living, he turned his head to hug his wife. Unfortunately, he got only a glimpse of Eurydice before she was once again drawn back into the underworld. So he couldn't wait to see his wife, and then chance by looking back at his wife, she got drawn again back into the underworld. So many of you who know that story would know where that story's coming from, or where they get the Lot story from, because the scholars talk about that. So we even go here and we see the comparison to a Bible scene. If you observe the above myth closely, you will find comparison between this ancient Greek myth and a scene from the Bible. The myth of Orpheus and Euripides is similar to the story of Lot. The analogy of not looking back is of great importance in both scenes, or in both stories. In the book of Genesis, when God decided to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, two cities drowned in sin, he ordered a good man Lot to take his family and leave the area. God told them to head for the mountains without looking back, the city being destroyed. Not looking back, the city being destroyed. While they were leaving the city, Lot's wife couldn't resist and turned around to see the burning city. She was immediately transformed into a pillar of salt. Into a pillar of salt. Yeah, sorry. This may be inferred as a direct and terrifying consequence of disobedience towards God. So, and I'm 100% sure there's a story in the Quran that's just like this one as well. So, which one came first? Well, obviously the Greek myth came first with Orpheus, and if you ever get a chance to do any research on Orpheus, you'll find out that Orpheus was an Egyptian. It was Orpheus who brought the mystery system to Greece and taught a lot of the Greeks the mystery system of Egypt. You can find that in what's that book called? Where's my book? I haven't got the book offhand by now. It's not Plutarch. I'll have to find the book another time, but you can find those sources. And if you want the sources, I can get it to you. I haven't got the book at hand at the moment. But he brought the mystery system to Greece, and that's why a lot of the Greek gods were very similar to those of the Egyptian gods. And that's all that Black Athena was talking about, how the Greeks got the mystery system. They even name one of their city after an Egyptian city. So the point of this little story is that it's not unique. This story is not unique to the Bible. The story of people disappearing to Hades. And if you read, even like I said, when Jesus was crucified and he was in his grave for 3 days and 3 nights, he was in Hades. So, I mean, you can see the typologies of the story if you study closely. So they must have known about Orpheus and the Eleusinian cult, as if you want to call it that, and these sacred stories and these mystery systems. They used them and they actually put them in there, but in the Bible. And that's why a lot of the people who commentate on the Bible will tell you to look up it if the stories are not making sense to you, like God in a burning bush, God walking on earth, then you have to look deeper to find the true meaning and not just the literal one, because no, God walks on earth. And like I said, there is no Moses, there's no great miracles like what we see in the Bible. It's poetic fantasy. So a lot of these stories that you are reading in the Bible were copied long time ago from other Greek mystery systems and Babylonian mystery systems and so forth, and they end up in your Bible as being real, or people not having, and some people just don't know the ancient stories of old. But once you start reading books like the Odyssey, the Homer's Odyssey, you start reading the Iliad, you will start finding a lot of these stories in there. In particular, Odysseus, or Ulysses, as they call him, the 12 labors of Hercules is another one. So all of these Greek mystery systems we can go through, and we can start analyzing how they are the same, and we will find the same story in the Bible. Let's take, for instance, Noah and the flood story. Many people know that we've got Upnefishtim, the Gilgamesh epics, but how many people know about Deucalion? All you have to do is Google Deucalion, and you'll see Deucalion flood story way before Noah's flood story. So even the Stoics told you that the people who you call Jews today, a lot of them were copying the story from copying their stories from ancient texts. So what you're reading in the Bible is not original. You'll find a lot of those stories. Samson was Samson's analogous to Hercules. So I mentioned 12 Hercules. Hercules is 12 labor, Jesus is 12 disciples. It's all coded. It's all coded. So yeah. So like I said, you'll find Orpheus also in the Quran, a story like that. I did have it, but I had a crash on my computer and I lost a lot of my slides. But you'll find a story just like Orpheus in the Quran, and obviously you read the story to anyone and they'll just say, oh, it sounds a bit like the Noah story. So they were just copying stories from ancient Greek texts, and they end up in your Bible today. So you can hear me? Yeah, so that's all I wanted to say. A quick view on who Orpheus is and Eurydice, and got a few more to come. I think I went over Danae and her virgin birth, with the golden rain, and her son Perseus, who became the hero. And I think also I went over the woman in Psalms who created the world. No one answered that yet. And I think the next one I'll be doing is, it's either based on Moses or something down that line. Or we'll get to it. So that's all I wanted to say. Peace to everyone in the chat. Alchemist. Yeah, peace. Yeah, I just came on to do something quick. Peace, bro. I'm gonna end the stream now. Probably pop back on later. We were supposed to discuss UFO, but the people who wanted to discuss it didn't show up. So see how that goes tomorrow. But thanks for watching.